Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to a new series of videos where I answer Patreon questions at the end of a season. So I stole this idea from some other reactors I've seen on YouTube, and at the end of each season, what I'm going to start doing now, or at least of a lot of the shows, is asking my Patreons for questions just to kind of look back on the season, wrap up my thoughts, rank some things, my favourite this, my least favourite that, and answer some of your fun questions hopefully, and just take a look back on that season as a whole before starting the next one. I think it's a fun way to look back at what we've just seen and get excited for the next season. So if you want to take part and ask me some questions for later episodes, later seasons, take a look at my Patreon link down below in the description box. But for this episode, we are doing questions about season 1 of 911 Lone Star. Now I only got a couple of comments, not many at all, but each comment had quite a few different questions in, so I'm going to go through those today. Don't know how long the video is going to be, but like I say, if you want to take part in the future, there's a Patreon link down below. So the first thing I'm going to answer, which wasn't actually a question from any of these comments, but it's something that I've seen in comments throughout my journey of 911 and Lone Star so far, which was just, which is your favourite, the OG 911 or 911 Lone Star? Now, I don't know if it's just because I've only watched season 1 of Lone Star, but so far my heart does lie with the OG show, the original 911, because that's the show that I fell in love with. That's the show that really made me love this franchise. And I'm not saying along the way I'm not going to tip the scales towards Lone Star, because Lone Star gets a lot of love in the comments. A lot of people seem to prefer that. But I think there could be an element of the fact that I've only seen season 1. When I watched season 1 of 911, I thought it was a really great show, but it was in season 2 that I really started to love the show, the characters, the storylines. It felt like, right, we've got an established group of characters now, except for Maddie, who joined in season 2, and Eddie, I guess. But also, now we can delve deeper into those characters, their backstories, give them some darker storylines. So season 2, for me, was really where 911 took off. So for Lone Star, right now, whilst it's not my favourite between the two, from season 2 onwards, that could be bigger and better when they introduce disasters and whatnot, which ties to a question I've got coming up later on. I feel like season 2 could really be where my love for the show takes off to another level. And then maybe like in future seasons, it will be like, yeah, I prefer Lone Star to the OG. But for now, as it stands right now, I prefer the original OG 911. So the first bunch of questions that we've got have come from Melissa over on Patreon. Hi, Melissa. And the questions are about the characters. So do you feel season 1 did a good job introducing who each of the characters are? To be honest, on the most part, yeah, I think they really did. I got a really good sense of who a lot of the main characters are and what their kind of, not motivations, but their personalities are. So, for example, Captain Strand, he's got cancer, so he's dealing with that. He's also trying to do the best for his son. He wants to lead this whole very inclusive team. Now, that's because he was told to, but also he was so willing to take that job and found people from all different kind of walks of life. And he chose to get such a diverse group of characters partly because his son's gay, but also because he just seems like a really caring, sweet guy that doesn't judge anybody for who they are. He just doesn't care who you are, what race you are, what gender you are, what you identify as, because at the end of the day, as long as you're a good person and are good at your job, that's what he values. And he got a really good sense of who he was in terms of his personality. He cares about his looks and his hair and his going to the gym and all the ointments and the moisturisers that he uses, and as well as getting a good idea of who he is as a person. His son, who's a loving guy, wants to propose to his boyfriend, but has these drug issues which obviously crop up very quickly. But he's a very caring guy, but also a very angry guy. He has a lot of anger that he has to deal with, and those two in particular I felt got the most sort of well-rounded introduction of who they are. So I feel like I really got to know those two. Other characters, whilst I got to know them a lot, I definitely think there's more to go on. For example, Marjon, Paul, and Mateo, we got to learn a base level of who they are. Mateo's this newbie who's struggling to qualify. Marjon is a Muslim who has trouble at her place of worship and goes out there and does all these big stunts, but is judged for that. And Paul, obviously a trans guy who's struggling to meet people. Now I feel like we got to know a good level about them. But tying into a question I've got later on, I'd like to see more just about their backstory, their life, how have they got to be a firefighter. I know that the show doesn't do begins episodes, but I'd like to see more about that. And just whilst I think it did a really good job of here's who our characters are. Now in season 2, let's delve into that a bit more. Now I'm a little disappointed because obviously after season 1, Michelle leaves. I feel like we got to know a little bit more about her in terms of the Iris storyline. but I definitely want to see more past that. But the next question is, who is your favourite character and who's your least favourite character? So this is a really tough one because I actually don't think I have any characters of the main group that I dislike. Now obviously, from the season as a whole, my least favourite character would be, is it Billy? Was that his name, Billy? But he was more of a side character. He was in a couple of episodes. So my favourite character from the main group, I would say, is probably going to be, I really like Marjan. I think I got a really good vibe from her. Just, she's this religious person. She cares about her religion. She sticks to the beliefs with the headscarf, going to pray and doing the things that her religion asks her to do. But she's also a badass woman who will jump off a bridge to save someone's life. She will go out there and rappel down walls and do all this stuff that, her friend said to her, they're not happy that you're doing these things. The other people that, the elders at the place that she worships, are not happy that she's going out there and making a big show of herself. But she's not doing it she does like the attention, and there's times when she wants to be in front of the camera. Because remember there was one episode where there was an emergency and she turned to see if the reporters caught her doing the cool, was it when she fell out of the car? I think when the car was stuck between the two buildings, turned towards the camera to say, did you get that? And they weren't filming it. So she does like the attention, but I don't think she does it to be famous. I think she just likes the attention. But I think she's one of my favourite characters because I just think I get a really good vibe of her. I want to know more about her personal life. My other favourites, I'd say TK. I think he's really adorable and cute, and I understand a lot of his anger issues and having that parent that's got cancer and struggling with that, as well as struggling with being in love with someone who doesn't love you back the same way or wants to leave you for somebody else. Now, I've not had the drug addictions that he's had, but I really identified with him on terms of sexuality, and I just think he's a really sweet guy, and obviously he's got a lot of anger that he's definitely working through, and I really liked him for that, as well as sometimes he was frustrating, but I think having a character that's balanced, I think is really good. I also really liked Paul. I want to get to know more about Paul, but I liked his storylines, the few ones that we had. As much as I want to see more about him, I definitely felt a lot of emotion towards him and his journey so far. In terms of my least favourite, it's not necessarily that I got a least favourite. It's maybe tied into the next question, which is there a particular character you're intrigued to learn more about or feel the show should give more information / story about? So that probably ties into maybe my least favourite, which is maybe that they're my least favourite because I don't know as much about them. So right here and now, I'd probably say Carlos. I think he's gorgeous, and when he comes on screen, I'm like, oh, Carlos. But I don't really know anything about him, other than he's Michelle's friend, but she's leaving anyway, so that kind of storyline's going to disappear. And he's TK's, they were sleeping together, and now they're sort of boyfriends. I don't really know anything about him and his personal life outside of TK and Michelle. What's his family like? What's his history like? Why did he become a police officer? It's not that he's my least favourite, but I guess he is in the sense that I just don't know much about him outside of his relationship to other people. So I don't know much about him as an individual, if that makes sense. Same kind of with, who else should we talk about? Grace, I guess. Like, I know Grace as Judd's wife, and I love her as that. I love her as a character, and I really think she could be one of the best ones moving forward. But I don't know much about her outside of her relationship with Judd and her relationship with Judd's father. I don't know much about her life and her family and her as an individual. So I think that's where my least favourite are coming. It's not because they're necessarily, I don't like them, but because just I don't know them outside of their relationships to other people. They're not my least favourite in the sense that I don't like them. There's no characters I think like I don't like, but I guess if I had to say my least favourite of the season, as all the characters, it would be Billy. Couldn't stand the guy. I hated him. I would also argue with that one, I'd like to learn more about Michelle, because I didn't know much about her outside of Iris, and where's Iris? I need Iris. I love Iris. We got little glimpses of, this is the person that you used to be when it wasn't all about looking for Iris. Little glimpses of her, like every now and again Michelle came through, but it usually all boiled down to Iris, and unfortunately the character leaves after season 1, so we're not really going to get to learn more about her, but I would love to learn more about her, because I love Liv Tyler as an actress. I've seen her in a few other things and I've always really liked her. She could have been a really cool character outside of searching for Iris, but unfortunately she's gone, so that's probably why I don't think about her as much, because I know I'm not going to get to learn more about her, but I would love to. The next group of questions are from Eliza. Hello, Eliza. Thanks for the questions. And they say, I'd love to hear you talk about the different dynamics, relationships between characters in the show. Which is your favourite and which ones would you like to see more of or learn more about. Might be a similar sort of answer to the above question that I just answered. But in terms of dynamics and relationships, which one do I like the most? I really like the dynamic between Captain Strand and TK. It's so easy in a lot of shows, maybe growing up with like the 90s, 2000s sort of teen drama TV shows that I did, it's so easy to have a straight father and a gay son, and that to be a problematic dynamic. That to be a troubled relationship where the dad doesn't accept the son, or he doesn't want to hear about it. Like, I don't care that you gay, I don't want to hear about it, or don't rub it in my face. But Captain Strand is one of the most accepting people, and that's what I love about this show, is it's so inclusive, and as it should be. But I love that Captain Strand is so the driving force of that. He's the one that got a gay son, a trans black guy, a Muslim woman, a Mexican guy, and all these different people with a couple of straight white guys all under one roof to work as a team, because obviously that's what he was hired to do, but also he chose those specific individuals. He hunted them down because they were good at what they did, and also because it helps broaden people's knowledge, and, you know, it's good to know about those different lifestyles and those different worlds. And so just the relationship between TK and the team, Strand and the team, and also Strand and TK, I think it's great. It's great to see a dad supporting his gay son through drug abuse, through a breakup, through this new relationship. Like when TK got shot and Carlos came in, he didn't really know Carlos. Because I'm sure it was after TK woke up, he was like, so who's like the cop that came in? I think he kind of put the pieces together and let Carlos come in and spend time with TK alone, because he could figure out that that's what was right to do at the time. And I just think, don't get me wrong, I've got issues with Strand at times. Like, sometimes he's a bit bullheaded and he won't step down. Like, you're dealing with the fallout of counter treatment. Take a step back, it's okay. But his relationship between them two, between him and his son, between him and the team, I think is really great. He's so supportive of everybody. Like when Paul was concerned about coming out in the shower, like in a towel, that would the people accept him? And Strand didn't care. But at the end of the day, you're a dude. I don't care. I think even if one of the women came out and just came out half undressed, I don't think he would care either. As long as they were comfortable and no one was being gross about it, I don't think anyone would really care. But he was just like, yeah, I don't care. Also, here's the moisturisers that I use, and taught him that his moisturising, routine. It was so sweet to watch. So I think he really does lead the inclusivity of the show, and I think it's brilliant to watch. Other relationships that I really like, I do really like TK and Carlos. I'm excited to see more about them because they've had a kind of a rocky start. They were sleeping together. Carlos wanted to date. TK had to back off because of his, feelings of what he was going through. Towards the end of the season, they started to kind of work things out. Excited to see more of them in the future. And I also really like Grace and Judd as a couple. She's very grounding to him with his anger and his grief and his PTSD. She's very grounding. And even when it came to Billy and his friendship with that, compromising Strand and that team, Grace was kind of like, brought him back down to earth and said, sort your head out basically, and look what people are doing. And she's good at opening his eyes to the realities of what's going on, and she's very, very level-headed and was very calm, especially when he was quite rude about her religion at one point. And she basically kind of just said, I'm not having this, I'm going to walk out. But she didn't argue, she didn't raise her voice, she didn't scream and shout, she didn't, cause a big scene. She made a point that she was upset. She made it very clear why she was upset, and then she left, and she let him come to her. And so she's great for that. Which dynamic would I like to see more of? I guess TK and Carlos was one of them, because I think they're very sweet, they're very sexy together. It's very, very nice to watch, I'm not going to lie, from a gay man's point of view. It's very nice to watch, but I want to know more about them as a good couple and how they work, and see, now that they're past kind of the initial rockiness, how does their relationship look? I'd also maybe like to see more about Judd and maybe someone like Paul. Get Judd and Paul have some scenes together. Maybe them go out and... Because I know that Judd is from this very conservative state where people are maybe not the most accepting at times. They're definitely getting more. I don't ever like to judge a whole state by its reputation. But, maybe Judd might be part of that. He definitely feels like he's more open-minded than a lot of people. Maybe spend some time alone with Paul and see how does he feel about things like that. And, I'd just like to see them be like bros together. I'd like to see maybe Grace get to know the other team a bit more, because I feel like in 911, all the characters move around a lot and interact with each other a lot, and say Hen's friends with Athena, but we also see scenes with her and Buck and her and Michael and her and Maddie, and everyone seems to be friends with everybody and have different dynamics with everybody. Whereas Grace, to my mind, only really gets scenes with Judd most of the time. So I'd maybe like to see her more with other people and develop relationships outside of her relationship with Judd. I know it's only 10 episodes, it's hard to kind of get all the relationships fully evolved. But I'm excited to do a series 2 because it's a slightly longer season, and season 2 of the original show is where it really took off. So, next question, which of the calls or emergencies from the season were your favourite? Now, they do like 3-4 episodes, so sometimes it's really hard to remember all of them. Which was my favourite off the top of my head? So I really liked the one where it was in the tornado episode. The guy whose house got blown down, got knocked down by the tornado, and his kids were trapped inside. I think I really like that because it was just very emotional and it felt very real, which I said a lot. These shows in this franchise can be very over the top, and that is fine. That can be fun, that can be really funny, that can be very dramatic and emotional and great. But this felt very real the way they did it, because when the team got out there, they put these microphone things inside the house to try and see if they could hear any sort of signs of life. And then it went just very quiet. They went silence, like we need no noise, we can listen. And there was a moment of just them listening to the microphones with wind. We could hear the wind, maybe a noise of the trees or something outside. There was no drama, there was no music, there was no people talking. It was just silence. And then I think it was Strand turned to the guy and said, you know, call out for your kids. And you heard him shouting for them. And then it was quiet again. And just something about that silence felt very real to me. And felt very different to a lot of this show, because the show is very swelling music of the drama and the tension or the emotion. And that is fine. You know, it gets me a lot. It makes me cry a lot of the time. But that definitely hit me because it just felt real in that moment. I think I also really liked the one in the finale with the guy on the space station on the phone to his wife and kid. That was hard to watch because he knew he was dying. He wanted to reach out to someone. He got through to Texas, to Grace, put them in touch with his wife, who very quickly picked up on what he was saying, which was, I'm not going to make it out of here. But he didn't actually have to say it. She picked up on it without. And then the kid got involved in the conversation. And so his wife had to basically say goodbye without saying goodbye because she didn't want the kid to know. And he didn't want the kid to know. And she said, like, when are you coming home? And, he died mid-conversation. It was so hard to listen to, so hard to watch. You'll realise probably in any of these videos that I do about 911, my favourites are probably always going to be the ones that make me cry. Because to me, if a show makes me cry, which, believe it or not, and you really won't believe it if you watch my reactions to the show, TV shows don't make me cry all that much. Especially not when I'm not recording. But this show just hits me right in the feels. There's so many different ones. I guess the next question, which is, which of them did you find the most ridiculous or unbelievable? Which did I find ridiculous or unbelievable? I guess it's not that I found the situation unbelievable, but maybe the fact that within the space of 10 episodes we had multiple tornadoes in one night. We also had a solar storm because of the space thing. And I guess the concept of the show as a whole is that all these incredibly different things happen all in one day, or all in the space of 10 episodes, can be quite unbelievable. But that's kind of why I like the show, is it is a bit over the top, and you kind of just turn a blind eye to it. You accept that's part of the show. Is that 1 minute they're going to be going and rescuing someone who's giving birth, 2 minutes later they're in the middle of their own car accident, and a few minutes later that someone's being murdered somewhere. It's just part of the show, and that's why I love it. It's so fast paced at times, and that's what is great about it, and I love that. I mean, if you answer any of these questions down below, which did you find ridiculous or unbelievable? Trying to think if there's any that I can think about. Oh, going back to my favourite ones, I also really liked the one in the grain silo, or was it corn silo? I think it was a grain silo, because that's something that feels like you wouldn't get in the original 911, or if they said it in some places like 911 UK, you wouldn't get that kind of scene. But I really liked it. I thought it was cool. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that was unbelievable, other than the idea that all these things happen in such a short space of time. I don't know. But please let me know down below if there's any that you can think of from season 1. In terms of the next question, which was the most shocking, I can easily say for me it was the one where TK got shot. Because it started off as just emotional, guy called someone's breaking into his house. Things were just not right, though. There was just something off about the call. And then someone else got a call about there's someone who's broken into my house. And we kind of started to realise it was the same call. And that the guy who'd called to say someone's trying to break in was actually in someone else's house, but he had, was it Alzheimer's or dementia? And he had broken into someone else's house, or his old house, was it? His old house. And so the home of the people that he was in, they were trapped upstairs. He tried to get into the bedroom, but they were obviously inside there with a gun. Long story short, they managed to stop that situation. I guess this could tie into the unbelievable, because it was just so many different things happened one after another. They stopped him from getting into the room with the guy with the gun, because they made him realise that it wasn't his home anymore, XYZ. He got to be taken out of the house, but then the older guy who had the gun, had a heart attack. Of course he did. So as he was having a heart attack, the 911 guys came in, go and help the guy. The kid picked up the gun and shot TK. It was one of those, it was just one thing after another, so that was a little unbelievable, but definitely was the most shocking for me, because it was like, I was so taken aback by it. It was just not something I expected. Just when the gun went off and TK fell to the ground, it was horrible. It was really horrible to watch. Next question was, I think it'd be fun to hear if you have any predictions about big disasters or emergencies that might be featured in future seasons, given the setting and tone of the show. So I think I had it, I guess, spoiled in a way, but I don't mind, that season 2 onwards had the big disasters that Now I'm On does, which was, we had season 1, here's our characters, from the start of season 2, every first couple of episodes of the season is going to focus on this big disaster, and that's going to take 2 or 3 episodes to wrap up, and it's going to be huge, dramatic, emotional. Obviously we had those ones in season 2 of 911 was the earthquake, season 3 was the tsunami. So which big disasters would I have in 911 Lone Star? I've had one spoiled for me, which is kind of a bit disappointing, but it's okay. Like, I'm not too bummed about it, because it's actually made me excited for it. So I know in one of the seasons, I don't know if it's 2 or 3 or 4, there's like a snowstorm or an ice storm or just something incredibly cold. I don't know much about it, but I just know that I would guess it's some sort of ice snowstorm. And that's actually really exciting, because what I liked about the ones in 911 is that me being here in the UK, there are things that I'm never going to experience, I hope. So something like that, other than just really cold weather, because we're in the UK, it's cold and rainy most of the time. Something to the level that 911's going to pull off, we're never going to experience, or something like that. It's going to be really cool. What I would guess is another disaster, if they didn't already touch on it in season 1, doesn't mean they can't do it again, would have been a tornado episode, because I find tornadoes and twisters really quite scary. Really scary. Because it's such a natural disaster that you can't do anything to stop, like all these ones that are the disasters. And I think they could do a really good 2-3 episode arc over that, and they could well do that in the future. But because they've done it in season 1, in one of the episodes in season 1, I don't feel like they're going to touch on it again, at least not straight away. Maybe they could, I don't know. Maybe there's the opposite of a cold, which is like a heat wave. That was sort of part of the earthquake in season 2 of Now I'm On, which was like the heat was getting really high, and that led to like water pipes bursting, XYZ, and then the earthquake happened. But maybe because it's Texas, I don't know, do they get heat waves, like dangerous heat waves, like the opposite of a snowstorm? I don't really know. I don't know enough about Texas and its natural climate and disasters, other than tornadoes. They're the only ones that I can think of from the setting of the show, which would be tornadoes, the snowstorm, ice storm that I know is coming, or just something really cold, and maybe the opposite of that is something really hot. I don't know. Maybe a wildfire, because there's a lot of, desert and, trees and stuff. Maybe some sort of wildfire, but maybe that's more like to happen in the original show. I don't know. I don't know. But in terms of emergencies, I thought there'd be more, I don't know if this is being very stereotypical, I thought there'd be more ones about, horses and, like, ranches, cowboys, that sort of setting. But I don't know if that's just a very stereotypical view of Texas in my mind from TV shows that I've watched and from watching season 1 of Walker. Going back to one of the early questions from Eliza, which of the emergencies did I really like, which was one of my favourites, which was, I think it was episode 1 or 2, maybe 3, when the woman was trying to blame the neighbours, the Mexican, I think were they Mexican? Neighbours for the starting fires and all this jazz, and then she faked a heart attack. And it turned out she was just like really racist. She didn't want the trans guy to help her. She didn't want the gay guy to help her. She didn't want the Muslim woman to help her. And whilst that was really awful, because she's a very bigoted, homophobic, transphobic, racist woman, and I hate those people. It was really fun to watch because it was like they all took a stand against her, and it was all because she knew she was faking the heart attack. Like she was obviously faking, and so like I didn't feel sorry for her that she was because she was faking the whole thing. So that was one of my favourites as well. But yeah, they're all the questions that I've got so far of the show. Obviously, there wasn't a lot, so if you want to help ask more questions for season 2 of 911 Lone Star and Supernatural and 911 and other shows that I do going forward, please take a look at the Patreon link down below. What I'll do is just before one of those videos goes out, a few days before I record it, I will put out a call for questions over there, and I'll pin it to the top of my Patreon so that it's always there for the few days before I record. I'm really excited to get more questions, and I'll probably talk a lot less if I've got more questions to answer. But yeah, those are the questions. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please let me know down below what you thought of the video. Let me know some of your answers to the questions as well, and I'll hopefully see you all very soon for the next season of 911 Lone Star. I'm very excited to see what they do with Series 2, with a new character coming in to replace Michelle, any other new characters and new dynamics that will come because of that, and also just excited to see what emergency they do to open the season. I'm really excited to find out. But the next video in the series will be the next part of Season 3 of 911, which I'm very excited to be jumping back into to finish off that season and go back to those characters who I've missed a lot as well. Thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you all very soon for that episode. Bye guys, take care, stay safe.